My last year of college in Columbus, Ohio didn't feel like the fresh start everyone promised. It was just cheap food and night shifts, and the kind of exhaustion that becomes normal after a while. I was 22, working closing shifts at the McDonald's on Morse Road 3 nights a week. Small crew, me, a manager named Dale, and whoever showed up. Most nights it was quiet. I stopped thinking about the quiet after a while. It was a Tuesday in late October when a man came in alone around 11:30. He sat in the booth closest to the back hallway and didn't order anything, just sat. I watched him from behind the counter. Dale was in the back doing inventory. I was alone at the front. The man didn't look at his phone, didn't look at the menu. He looked at me, not the way someone looks at a cashier, but the way you look at something you've already decided on. I kept cleaning, kept moving, told myself to stop being dramatic. Around midnight he went to the restroom. I went straight to Dale and told him something felt off. Dale came out, looked at the empty booth, shrugged. I told him the man was in the bathroom. Dale said if he wasn't ordering by 12:15, he'd ask him to leave. Standard procedure. The man came back and sat down. Dale walked over, explained politely that the lobby was for customers. The man smiled, slow, patient, and ordered a small coffee. Dale seemed satisfied. I wasn't dot at 12:45. Dale got a call. His kid was sick. He told me he'd be stepping outside for a few minutes. The back door clicked shut. The lobby was just me and the man in the booth. He finished his coffee, placed the cup precisely in the center of the table. Then he reached into his jacket and set something else down carefully. A photograph. I couldn't see it fully from behind the counter, but I could see enough. It was a woman from behind, walking through a parking lot. A parking lot I recognized. The parking lot of my apartment complex. My hand stopped working. Not dropped, something stopped. Just stopped. The overhead lights buzzed. The fry warmers clicked. I remember thinking I could see my car through the front window, and I needed to not look at it. I walked to the back and hit the lobby lock before Dale even came inside. Told him everything. He called the police. By the time they arrived, the man had walked out right when he heard me throw the lock. The police said there wasn't much they could do. He hadn't threatened anyone. They took the photo as evidence and told me to be aware of my I quit the next morning. Had a deadbolt installed that same week. They never identified him. The case went nowhere. I moved cities 8 months later, and sometimes now, walking through a parking lot at night, I feel it, that same stillness, that same silence that's slightly wrong, and I wonder if he ever actually moved on, or if he just got more careful. I grew up outside Chattanooga, Tennessee, which meant McDonald's was the place on a Friday night, because there was literally nowhere else. I was 16, recently dumped, and there with my friend Priya, because misery and a McFlurry seemed like a reasonable plan. Priya went to the restroom around 9:45. I stayed in the booth, scrolling my phone. Half-empty restaurant, normal crowd. That's when I noticed the guy at the counter, mid-20s, gray hoodie. He had ordered something but wasn't watching for his food. He was watching our booth. When Priya wasn't there, he watched me. The second she came back and sat down, he looked away, like he'd been practicing that. I told Priya. She looked over and he was on his phone. She said I was reading too much into it. Maybe she was right. I was in a bad headspace. We stayed another 30 minutes. He stayed the whole time, nursing a Coke, not eating, not on a call. When we got up to leave, he stood up too, but turned toward the counter, like he'd suddenly remembered something. The timing was too clean. In the parking lot, I looked back through the window. He wasn't looking at the counter. He was looking at us through the glass. 2 days later, I got a follow request on Instagram from a blank account. No photo, no posts. I looked through its following list. 43 accounts. 21 of them were girls from my school, all around my age. All faces I recognized. I screenshotted everything and showed my mom. She called the police. The officer took notes and told us to document any direct contact. I blocked the account. It disappeared within an hour. A new one appeared the next morning. I blocked that one. Another appeared. This went on for 11 days. Then it stopped. No explanation. No arrest. Nothing. I've had a private account ever since. I check my follower list most nights before bed. Old habit that never went away. And a few months after it all stopped. One of the other girls on that following list mentioned to me that someone had been watching her at work. She worked at a different McDonald's across town. She only brought it up once, then never mentioned it again. I think about that more than I probably should. I was 31, driving back to Milwaukee from a funeral in Indianapolis. Raining the whole way, flat gray Midwest rain. I hadn't slept properly in 3 days. I pulled into a McDonald's just off I-65 in Remington, Indiana, around 2 a.m. I just needed something warm and 20 minutes off the highway. Inside it was quiet. A woman at the counter named Renee, maybe 50, practical and decent, in that midnight shift way. I took a booth near the window where I could see my car. About 10 minutes in, a tall man came in wearing a canvas jacket and work boots. He picked up a to-go bag from the counter, clearly called ahead, then stopped in the middle of the lobby. Not frozen, just paused, like he was listening. Then he sat down in a booth at the far end, instead of leaving. I told myself it was nothing. Then, I noticed his phone screen was angled toward me, not toward him. And his eyes weren't on his food. He was watching me sideways, the way you do when you don't want to be caught. A few minutes later, Renee came out with a mop and said, "Loud enough for the room. Camera's been acting up tonight. Had the technician called? Should be fixed by morning." The man stopped chewing. It was a small pause, half a second, but I saw it, and something dropped in my chest. Because you don't react to a camera announcement unless you've been thinking about cameras. He finished slowly, folded his bag, nodded at Renee, and walked out. I watched his truck pull out of the lot, and instead of getting on the highway, it turned onto the county road alongside the building, and stopped, lights off. I went to the counter and told Renee. She looked at me carefully and said, "You're not the first person to mention that truck tonight." She called the sheriff. A deputy came in 15 minutes, drove down the county road. The truck was gone. He took my information and told me to drive safe. A week later, I called to follow up. The deputy told me the plate came back to a stolen vehicle. No driver located. Investigation ongoing. I still don't know what that man wanted. Maybe Renee's camera comments scared him off before anything happened. Maybe I was a tired, grieving man, reading too much into a stranger's pauses. But I don't think that's what it was. I think about that dark county road a lot. The lights cutting off, and I keep coming back to one question I can't shake. What would have happened that night if Renee had said nothing at all?